course, to the board members who are always helpful, Bianca, Sarah, Daniel, and David, thank you so much for being here. And also, of course, to the girls from the main committee events, meaning Nita and Ada, and also Kami, thank you for being here. As I said, we are here to answer all of your questions, so please feel free to ask us anything. And now I will move to the big question, which is how exactly will the final event be conducted? So as I said, this is different from what we had last year, meaning that last year the event was split up into two parts. We had one which was based on rooms, and then the second part which happened in the aula. Now we only have the first part, meaning that you will be organized in groups or on a room with 3 groups. And you'll have to present the presentation that you will already have by the time of the final event. So each group will have around 55 minutes for the presentation. It's gonna be 50 to 20 minutes for the actual presentation, but we read that they're giving you a maximum of 30 minutes just in case you have some technical difficulties, and since it is online, maybe it will be a bit unpredictable with the slides and everything else. And then it will be the Q&A session, which is going to be around 50 to 20 minutes. I think this is the biggest point that we have to address. It very much depends on your supervisor, the Q&A portion, because, for example, we had supervisors last year, such as Mr. Johnson, who would interrupt students during their actual speech, like not even after they finish their individual part of the presentation. In my case, for example, we all finished the presentation, so each team member presented their slides, and then we were asked questions individually. But then in other cases, after, for example, I finished my part, then I was asked a question by the supervisor. So here it very much depends on who your supervisor is, and the same goes with how the actual question will be like. I can speak from my personal experience, and I will ask all the other year 3 students to do the same. But for me, what was surprising is the fact that my supervisor was very attentive to the actual slides, because we have to incorporate graphics, and we have to make it a bit interactive. So she was actually looking at what I wrote on the slides, on the graphic itself, and she asked me a specific question of the graphic, which I'm not gonna lie, it was a bit surprising. I didn't expect that at all. But that just shows that some of them are going to be very thorough. They can, of course, ask something which is very general or something that you will for sure know the answer. But I guess that very much depends on luck. I know it is not very reassuring to hear this, but it very much depends from supervisor to supervisor. So we cannot guarantee specifically how it will be for each and every one of you. But from what I gathered and from what we asked of our colleagues in year 3, it's usually one of these 3 scenarios. So you have, as I said, you can be interrupted during the presentation, after you speak, and then after everyone in the team finishes. Now, Bianca, I saw that you have your hand up.
Yes, on the I wanted to actually just add on what you just said. On the slide, so on the actual PowerPoint that you'll be presenting, only include information that you know, and in case they will be asking you something about it, you know the answer. So if there is something that you are not very much sure about, it's better not to put it, not to include it, instead of risking it, and when when the question is asked, then you are there like not being able to make up anything and give and say even like 2 words.
Yeah, I definitely agree to this. So as we said, like, just be very, very sure of the information that you're going to present, because I think it's better to have in a way less, but be sure of it, and have more and you have a bit of doubt, because most cases they ask you exactly what you're not sure about. So just for you to be sure that the situation won't occur, I think it's best for you to have information that you're sure of.
And then and also like on the graphics that you guys include, make sure to know, like, to be able to explain why you designed a certain graphic in such a way. Because, for example, last year, it was my case, we noticed that the year before us, they included a nice graphic of all the firms and corporations that were mentioned, and it was very nicely done, and there you could actually understand how one corporation or firm was connected to the other and things like this. And I included, for example, in my presentation, but what I didn't just include the picture that I found, on, I think it was on actually Google, because someone uploaded it few years ago, the same case, but I actually did again the graphic, and I made sure uh, to know why each firm or each corporation was connected to the other, and be able to explain that to the audience, because then my supervisor actually asked me a question about that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then after the Q&A portion, the final thing in your case, it's gonna be that you're gonna be giving feedback for 5 minutes. And we read in the course description that it says there that each tutor group may be invited to ask another group one question. Again, I'm only speaking for my situation last year, but after each one of the team presented their presentation, we were also asked questions from the other tutor groups, like not only one, but I think all of them were given the chance to ask us a question. So again, be prepared for that as well. Also, they are stating in the course description that they will evaluate your group also based on the question that you ask or how you answer to that question. So I think it's better to be prepared with one or two questions in advance, just to have it there. And yeah, that was it concerning how exactly will the event be conducted. Again, we will go back to this if you want to ask something else, or if you want us to be even more specific than this. But now I will give the floor to Bianca to start with her presentation.
Yes, thank you very much. So, okay, the presentation that I'm gonna show you guys, it's actually very easy. I'm just explaining what documents do you guys need during the final event. And by explaining the documents that you'll be needing, I'm hoping that then I will also be able to, to make you understand more or less what information you will actually have to, present and actually know during the event. So, okay, let's start with the PowerPoint presentation. We also had so many questions also on Instagram concerning the PowerPoint presentation. You are free, to do it however you prefer. If you want to make it pretty or simple or to include graphics, it's up to you. Just make it understandable and professional, and it's better to write a little less, but for it to be more formal than having all the text all together and like all messy. So this is, for example, again, I'm using slides from the presentation that I did with my group last year. And therefore, if there are graphics or anything, they are based on the option that my group chose last year. And after each slide, if you guys have any question, please ask it, just raise your hand and we'll answer it right away. So this was the cover page and everything, and with the name of our law firm and everything. So first of all, what are you required to put in the presentation? And again, the slides that I'm putting is just an example, how you can present it to make it clear. So this year, and I'm basing this information on your course description because we were required to have more information. But what I could see on Blackboard in the information from this year is that you just need to put information about your law firm and the lawyers. So in this case, you will just need to say, you already have done this, you already worked on this type of information already from the beginning when you were supposed to write a document presenting the law firm and your team. So you should already know this information. And again, as you can see, for example, in mine, we just, left it simple. And then when we talked, we just the person that was in charge of this just introduced everyone, and, simple as it sounds. And then that's when the most of the presentation will be focusing on is the evaluation of all the options. So in this case, we have, as you know, three options: the purchase of the assets owned by Carmen Real Estate, the purchase via share transfer of Carmen Real Estate, or the purchase via share transfer of Max Holding BV and Max 2 BV. So what my group did was simply showing each option, and then for each option talk about advantages and disadvantages. So it's quite simple. And again, the information about this, you already worked on it, because I do remember there was so many documents we had to submit throughout the these 2 past quarters, that you already have all the information. And also maybe take the advanced corporate book, because I know you should be you are taking that course, right? And just scroll through it, because there is information there as well. So again, each information, you will just have to explain each option and like advantages and disadvantages. What we did at the end for purchase via share transfer of Max Holding and Max 2 BV, we spent a little more time on that because that was our option. So of course we had to explain more. But again, each of you, based on all your research that you have done so far, you will present your own option. So now we go, as you can see, this second point that of the PowerPoint. So you have to give legal advice concerning the option that you are presenting, and it needs to be on the risk assessment. Okay, so on this, again, I really do believe that there is no right option. Like, there isn't a correct answer for this. The important thing for you guys is to well argument your choice. As long as your argument, it's based on facts and on proper, legal grounds, and as long as you present a good logic argument, you should be fine. And then risk assessment. Yeah, on this, my advice is to do some research. So far, you should have just, focused on each task for the project, and there are the templates. So, just follow the templates with some extra research, and it's like research on Google. You don't have to look into books, case, or anything, and you will be fine. So again, also for the risk assessment, Google your choice, so purchase via share transfer, what are the risks? And then based on that, you do your research, and then you see what's plausible for your case and things like this. Okay, before I carry on, do you guys have any question on any of the points touched upon during the past few slides? It can be either on how to do the PowerPoint presentation or even on content, and if we are able to answer, we will answer. No, okay. I do not. Yes?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to mention that this is already more useful than any information we've received on this so far, so thank you.
Oh, that's so nice to know. Mara, I can still see your hand up. Did you want to?
Yes, no, I just wanted to emphasize again the point about there not being a correct answer to the option, because one of the question was if you will be graded based on the option that you choose, which is not the case. You will be graded on how you motivate the choice that you have, like what arguments you bring. So there's no like right or wrong answer. You shouldn't worry about that. And also concerning the fact that like we didn't exactly have a lot of like a good idea of how the event will be. This is not us in any way, like not shading the course or things like that, because there was a big issue actually in our event last year on the OLA when someone raised the point that we're not like, we didn't exactly know what was happening. And then Dr. Lewis was the one who said that she has a lot of background in the corporate field, and this is exactly how a merger and acquisition is going. Like this is how exactly the due diligence process is taking place. Like it's everything chaotic. You don't have a lot of information. Everything is thrown at you. So this is not like it's totally fine. It's totally fine for it to be this way. So don't worry about that. And we are glad that we can help you, you know. I just wanted to point that out, so you know it's not us saying that, you know, we didn't receive enough information or things like that.
That's the real word. And again, because I really do stress, I want to stress this because okay, a little about my experience last year. We were doing the last lecture of advanced corporate law right before Christmas, when Miss Ashman was explaining exactly what purchase via share transfer, you know, everything, like the assets and all those were. And I do remember I was with my teammates in the class, and while she was explaining it, we looked at each other terrified because we thought, you know, we got the wrong answer, because we're like, okay, we are putting our client in a big risk and everything. But at the end, when then, you know, we got picked as best team and again, like as winning team, we then realized it's because we based all, you know, everything that we provided during the final event, because that's what the lecturers can evaluate you on, the documents and your presentation in the final event was well argumented and was based on our research, legal, factual research, and most importantly, I still have it, this, which is the data room that you guys were provided. And I will also get back to that in a bit, because that is actually very important. I will continue now with the documents that you are supposed to have during that day. So the draft contract of acquisition and engagement letter, pretty easy. You have templates. You just then have to, you know, fill in the templates with the information that relates to your transaction, with your preferred transaction. Engagement letter, you already done this document, I think, long ago, so you know you should have it. And then a simple document, like I did, a table where you write your name, your student number, and then what you guys exactly did during, you know, in the project, during the presentation. What was your how do you say, your task. So, and that's like very easy. It's this last document, it's just for the supervisor, assessor to know who's in the group and who's doing what, so they can assess you better. But that's it. Now, the due diligence report. I do know that this is due tomorrow, if I'm right, but I still wanted to kind of go over and give you like at least some information to then make sure that you guys, you know, did it correctly, or at least you got near, you know, like what was required from you. So first of all, you need an outline of the scope of the overview. Basically, you just it's like an introduction. You say what's the content of the due diligence report, and you know, that's it. Then you need an analysis of the documentation and information revealed. So again, this is the data room, and you basically just go through all the data room and you say what you guys found. So what are the documentation, the information that you have, and what was missing from that. So again, it's I mean, it's, you know, it's easy. It's there, black and white. It's written down. So you just have to go through all of it. And then you need a list of all information disclosed by investigation. Again, this is the data room, and a list means just a list, you know, bullet points. You just, you know, like start in the information disclosed by the investigators or whatever, you know, you make it a nice fancy heading, and then you just make a list of everything. So again, the data room is very important. Like just to make understand, while doing this, I do remember, because it was during normal times when we were still able to work together at university. At some point, we were so lost with all these words because we didn't know what to put in the due diligence report. And it was like me and my teammates, we just went to the library in the evening, sat down like the whole afternoon till evening, and we went through every single page of the data room. And then, we managed to do it. But you have to, you don't have to know every single number, every single word, but you need to know a little like what's in here. And I know it sounds like a lot of work, because now hearing to myself, it sounds like I worked, like so much. But it's also about being, you have teammates, so split the data room. It's so many pages, just split it, between you. And then instead of spending the whole day, you just spend 1 hour each, and that's it. Okay. Then we have limitations and disclaimers of liability. This is a little more more complicated. Here again, you just have to do some research. Again, what you have to research is the option that you picked, and then just try, to understand what could be the because I also have it, what could be the liabilities in your case. So you also have to know the facts, and also the disclaimers. Again, it's all about research. You have to Google it, because that's what we did so far, because no one tells you anything. And then whatever information you find, then you just base it on the option that you picked and on those 2 pages of case scenario that you have, which is very little, but then you supplement it with some stuff of the data room, and you have already completed another part of the due diligence report. And then, okay, an executive summary which outlines the legal issues identified and advises on the legal implication of proceedings with the transactions. So again, risk alert. So, and it sounds very fancy, but basically, or at least that's what our group did, it's basically explain what will legally happen when the transaction that you picked is completed. So you picked, like purchase of assets or purchase via share transfer. Okay, what is going to happen? And you should be able to know what's going to happen legally, because if you guys remember, you had to do a legal memorandum on all the legal fields that were relating to this type of transactions. So tax law, of course, corporate law, even environmental law, to some extent, employment law, intellectual property law, and all these things. And again, this is like, I'm not adding anything new to what it's already in the core description, because again, this was one of the tasks that you did it, like I think one of the first tasks. So actually check everything that you have worked on so far, because it's going to be useful at the end. And maybe it's not like super perfect, because at the beginning we were not really sure on what to write, but still at least you have some kind of base. And then we have recommendation section where you'll elaborate on your proposal for the transaction. And then, you again say what is the preferred transaction, and then you kind of advise them on the actions or the consideration that should be taken during and after the transaction. So if you, for example, say let's do purchase via share transfer, then in the document you'll be like, okay, this is the proposed transaction, but you have to consider this. Oh, and also make sure to include this, but remember this, and this. I mean, you're basically telling your client or whatever, like whoever this report, because now I don't remember, sorry, the due diligence report is addressed to, that that's your option, but be aware that this and this may happen, or this may legally affect you, and things like this. And then a conclusion with a financial analysis explaining the feasibility of your recommendation and the impact they will have on the company. And these are a lot of words nicely put together, but it's basically you have to discuss the finances of the transaction, simply as it is. Like what will happen, all the costs and things like this. You don't have necessarily to discuss numbers. At least I'm basing all this information on what my group did, but just tell them like what will financially happen. And again, how do you know this information? Research on Google, like just Google and data room. Okay. Do you guys have? Yes.
Someone has a question.
Yeah, I was wondering if, because they are asking questions probably randomly, as you said in your experience, and because we're working as a team of lawyers, if my colleague or myself, I'm not able to answer one of the questions, can another colleague answer for that person?
Okay, I will, based on my experience, during the presentation itself, the assessor will either interrupt you or at the end will ask at least one question to each of you. And then if there are extra questions, I am not sure how in an online version will work, but maybe you guys, you can be like, our colleague, and you say the name, will be the one elaborating on that question. Thank you for your question. Our colleague will be elaborating on that. And maybe in the Google Drive, that everyone will have on their screen, you will also just what to say. Because okay, so during the presentation part, last year, I answered to my question. Everyone in my group answered to their questions. During the OLA part, one of my teammates who was very good, so we made him answer all of them. So
okay, so I will complete what you said, and then I'm going to give the floor to Sarah and to Nita. But regarding your specific question, if he or she, like the supervisor, specifically says your name, then I think you should try to say something, but maybe in a way, try to communicate to your group that you would like some sort of, help on answering the question, and then some of your colleagues can then add to what you already said. But then if she's just gonna, or he is just gonna ask like something general, then each and every one of you can answer. For example, as I said, like for my presentation, they asked each one of us one question, and then there were like two general questions, which were answered by those who volunteered. But and to this note, like what we wanted to also say as general tips is try to know a bit about what your colleagues are also saying, because I know, for example, teams who someone was asked of something from the presentation but was not part of his specific slide, and then he couldn't say like, oh, this was not my part. He still had to say something. So it's just good to look over them and have just the basic understanding of what the team actually saying.
Yeah, Mara, can I add one thing before I let also the others answer? Have a Google shared drive, like those Google Docs shared on your screen with all the members of the team, because then there you can just write and comment without, seem like you're on your phone asking for help to someone. And then you can comment everything there, and they can, give you answers or hints for what to say and things like this. Yeah. And now we are online, so try to have, documents open. But even if you have some documents with you next to you printed, I mean, it should be fine. But yeah.
Sarah, you want to add something?
Yes, I'll add, the thing is your grade is based on many different factors. So one of them is answering the questions asked. Like she could ask you one question, two questions. So using my logic, if you can't answer the question, your grade is going to be less than if you answer the question. So my advice is Altamash gave an advice during the MUN. If you don't know the answer, just do like a general overview of what you've been saying. So at least you answered it. And if your colleague answers it on your behalf because you didn't say anything at all, I assume his grade is going to go higher. So just answer anything, even if it's just a summary of what you've been saying, if your head is blocked.
Yeah, exactly. Nita, you also want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say the same basically. But in my case, we were asked the question. My groupmate was asked the question, and she couldn't answer it. But someone else jumped in to answer it instead of her. But she made sure that she still said something. She even repeated what the other person said, so that made her a grade sufficient, I would say. So you can jump in, but make sure that you still say something.
Yeah, I guess that's the main thing. At least try to say something, you know. That's the main takeaway, I feel like. Also, whilst Carolina is going to ask her question, I would like to ask the year 3 students who are here, because someone asked on Instagram if we remember specifically the questions that we received. So I'm going to jump to that question after Carolina is going to ask her her question. So please go ahead, Carolina.
There was a question on WhatsApp. The first question was already answered. The second question is, if a member does not answer a question asked, can an individual fail?
I mean, as far as I know, they didn't fail anyone in my room last year, and there are people who, this is like trying to put it nicely, didn't contribute a lot to the overall presentation, so they just read out the slides and pretty much that's it. And she still like passed, so I don't, and especially now that it's online, I don't think that you should worry that they're going to fail you, because I feel that they're going to be understanding of the situation. So I wouldn't worry that much of them actually failing you if you don't have such like a, you know, like a clear present in the overall presentation, or if someone speaks more than you do or stuff like that. I think it's very unlikely that they will actually fail you.
Yeah, maybe you'll have a lower grade because you will also be graded on the presentation part, you know, so you still can make up for that.
There was also another question. Can an individual refer a question to another member of the team? I don't understand if this means whether you can by yourself pass a question to someone else, or whether someone who is attending and is not in your group can ask a question to your group. But maybe you can answer both.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we talked about before, which is if I don't know the answer to something, can I pass it to someone else in my team? Which I think you can do that, but as Sarah said, I think it's important for you to at least try to say something, even if you just like repeat some of the parts on your particular slides, which is basically like going around the actual question, but at least make sure that you have something to add. And this goes to another tip that we wanted to share with you, which is to be as prepared as possible, and especially to know your slides. I'm not saying to know them by heart, because, you know, with them being online, you can use your laptops. We couldn't do that, so we had to learn them a bit by heart. But
Yeah,
you're a bit more lucky now, so I think just try to go over the some of the information that you have written down, because the supervisor is not going to say like, oh, you know, this is not really the answer to the question. Like you're just going to let it be, but then you can also say maybe one of my teammates want to add something to this, and then they can jump to the particular question as well.
Yeah, and I mean, even in the final, during the final event when it was in person, I do remember we had at least some papers that we could look at from time to time. Of course, not read from them, but at least I do remember I had the papers with me. But yeah, like just what Mara said, and again, you technically can refer it to your colleague, but then it will it will be a disadvantage for you because it shows that you were not able to answer.
Yeah, there was another hand raised besides Carolina. If you want to ask the question now. Also, I don't want to name you because I don't see your first name, so I think it's a bit like awkward of me to say your last name, which is why I'm only saying, please, if you have a question, just go ahead.
Thank you. It's Laura. So my question is, if someone fails the final event in the worst case scenario, does that account to failing the whole project or not?
There should be, I don't have it right now in front of me, but somewhere in the course description or on Blackboard, it should actually say how much each task, including the final event, because the final event per se, it's one task of the many, amounts to. So then you just see, you know, like if you still get a pass with the other task, then you should be fine. And I do remember maybe also the MUN project was like that, like the final event was just, you know, like maybe 40% of something like that. So, but Again, check the course description. It should say, because they may have changed it.
It's 40%. So you don't fail, but if you barely passed the other individual task, which is the letter of advice, you might fail because you need to have, I think, an average of 5.5, but for the single is 4.5.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you. Was there another question, Carolina, from WhatsApp or something?
No,
you have,
but I forgot it, so I'll think about it again. I'll let you know.
okay. No, because you had your hand raised, which is why I was asking. But now I'm gonna ask Sarah and Kami to share some of the questions that they remember they received, because they were the ones who said that they remember something specific. So please go ahead.
Okay, I can start. So the thing is, I don't remember the wording of the question, but I can tell you like what was my answer, so then you can just look over there. So I remember my question was to do about the parking lot. I don't know if you still have that, but just a hint, maybe in your presentation to talk about that. And yes, I remember, I forgot which option we picked, but it was to do something like that, you know, because if you have one of the options, then if there is a lawsuit on that parking lot, then your client might then be liable, but then you can say what hotel has no parking lot. So I remember I answered something with the parking lot topic. So yeah.
Yes, Kami, can you go next?
Okay, yeah. Now, for me, it was also the parking lot, actually, because I think in our room, no one mentioned it except for me, and I was in the last team. And I remember that it was just one phrase that I had about it, and I didn't even see it in the documents by myself. I just took them from another friend's documents because it was something that no one in my team noticed in the documents. So for my question, it was whether I feel like the parking lot issue would influence the final decision and the final time and everything that has to do with the case. So I basically just came up with something on the spot, which was of course that it would be more expensive, it would be more time consuming, and we would still have to think whether that would be useful for our case to bring it up or not. And she seemed like she enjoyed the answer, but I think honestly she doesn't really care if you answer correctly or not, as long as you kind of look like you know what you're saying and you argue correctly, because some people didn't even really answer their question. They went a bit beside their point, but she still graded them really, really good, only because they argued it so well. So I would say that's the way to go. So don't panic about the question, but be more stressed, kind of, and not really stressed, but pay more attention to the way that you are behaving and try to look as confident as possible.
Exactly. And before I give the floor to Bianca again, because she has her hand up, I think this is also important to mention, is the fact that I wouldn't expect for the supervisor to be, you know, extremely knowledgeable on the subject. Well, only if you have the misfortune of having someone who's, you know, like from the corporate area, then I guess maybe you should read up a bit more. But if it's someone from who you know is from other fields, then I wouldn't worry that much on how specific the information has to be, because it's impossible for them to also remember all the details, even though this project is the same for many years now. I still feel like they don't, you know, they're not extremely prepared on the topic, all of them at least. So again, like, try not to be caught up in the particular details. Just try to have like very good and concise arguments, because I think that goes way better. And for my question, I said it, I briefly touched on it again, but it was something to do with a graphic that I made. And hopefully I remember this correctly, but I just basically I presented how the one of the company was like split up and into multiple like subdivisions, and I wrote something there. To be completely honest, I took it from one of the presentations that I found, you know, in previous years. So I didn't exactly know what that particular company was and why did I specific chose to put it there. So I just went around it. So again, like, this just shows that, you know, don't worry if you're not extreme. I mean, don't do like how we did it, and be a bit more prepared, especially now that you had the session. But don't be stressed about it, because we very much improvise, like a lot of us. So I just like not worry. I think it's my biggest advice on this issue with the questions. And now David has something to say also.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to mention that the hardest question will not come from the supervisor, but it will come from the other teammates. So watch out from the other teammates. Just to add on that, you don't need to possess the greatest financial knowledge. Most of the questions are common sense. But now I'm remembering one of the questions that we did to the other team, and they were choosing the options to buy the shares of Max BV. And if the fact pattern is the same, you can see that Max BV subsidiaries have, well, they are into debt, a lot into debt. And our question was, of course, why would you buy a company that has a lot of debts? That was one of the questions. And yeah, you don't need a lot of financial knowledge to answer that. So yeah, stick to improvisation, and just try to repeat what you already have. Try to stick to your option. So on that note, yeah, try to be friendly as well. Don't try to be ill-intended, because the supervisor will see. And yeah, I speak from my own experience, because last year we were considered as one of the teams who were actually a little bit more passionate than one should be. So in that case, try to remember that in the end of the day, we're all friends, and you don't have to make other people look bad. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, you brought up a very important point, in my opinion, which is the financial part. Because for my team, we were very much scared of the calculation side of the project, and we thought that it should be like extremely concise and that we should know a lot of actual mathematic data, which of course we're not. I mean, particularly my team was not very advanced on the mathematics side of the situation. So don't worry about that either, because I don't think they're gonna specifically check for the numbers in the presentation. So don't worry about that, in my opinion. Yes, Cami, and then we're gonna go back to Carolina, I promise.
Yes, it's also on the topic of this. I was really, really scared, and my colleagues were also really scared about the facts, because as we were split into teams and it was mostly a group project, I mostly did not really look at everything, honestly. So I was really scared that I perhaps missed something that was not part of my presentation. And honestly, for us, we had, I think, Miss Montero. I was with Bianca as well. So we mostly just had questions that we could argue on the basis of our legal knowledge and not on the basis of the facts of the case. So I would say, once again, try and be really, really confident in your legal answer and not in your answer regarding the facts, because there was no question regarding the facts, only about legal arguments.
Bianca?
Yeah, no, I was actually going to say the exact same words that Cami said, because the questions, so my tutor group was split in two groups, and both groups were asked questions about liabilities that will come with the preferred option. So as Cami said, make sure you have some legal knowledge on the issue, and it shouldn't be a problem, because again, you guys had a memorandum on it, and try to kind of cover all aspects. And then I do remember another question was on the price. How come one of the option was cheaper than the other? So, again, it's not about knowing the numbers, but it's, if you buy, assets or shares, the costs and the financing involved are different. So also make sure to know the proper difference between each of the option and know what comes with each option.
Daniel, do you also want to add something to this?
Yeah, basically, I just want to agree with what everyone's been saying so far, because I think a lot of people are worried about the questions, it sounds like, and what they might get asked during the event. But I think I was just thinking about what our questions were, and I had Mr. Johnson as my supervisor for the event, and we were basically just asked for more information on the things we had already talked about. And we weren't blindsided with some random new angle that we hadn't thought of, or he saw something from another group and thought, oh, I'm going to question them on that. It was nice questions just to explain further, just check we understand it. And I don't remember having too many problems with the questions. Just like David said, your teammates can sometimes ask the more difficult questions. But even then, I don't remember having any problems with it. I was quite pleasantly surprised in the end.
Yeah, I also think that we gave you like the hardest examples and like the questions that maybe are a bit more tricky. It may very well be the case that you're gonna be asked just to like make sure that one of like I don't know to present again one of the arguments or something like extremely basic and easy. So yeah, don't put a lot of pressure on the question part itself. Yes, Cami, and then I'm gonna go to Carolina, I promise.
Yeah, no, it's just a quick thing to complete on your answer. I just remember that we had another question, which was actually at the end of the presentation, so it was for the whole group. And it wasn't even something that was hard because we expected something really, really hard for all of us to know. But it was just if we feel like we collaborated really well and we feel like this is the best team for the firm itself. So as Mara said, there's not going to be hard questions, but there's going to be hard and easy ones. You just have to make sure that you are confident in all of your answers regardless, because there can be really, really easy questions such as this one.
Exactly. Carolina?
I have a technical question. So when they ask questions, is the time stopped then, or do the 20 minutes also include the questions?
No, I think it's the 20 to 30 minutes because they said a maximum of 30 minutes is going to be specific for the presentation itself, and then you're going to have like 20 minutes for the questions. But if it happens that you go over the times, I don't think they're going to like stop you or say like, oh, time is up. I really doubt that that's going to be the case because, for example, in my team, there were people who had like less questions, so they finished a bit earlier, or their answers were a bit more concise. So again, like they finished a bit earlier, than some like really took their time with answering, and it just very much depends on the team and the answers and things like that.
Okay, so basically if they have like a stopwatch, they just pause, ask the question, and then when the answer is given and you continue with the presentation, they continue with the time.
Oh, you mean if they ask the questions after each one presents their specific part?
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt.
in that case.
Sorry,
Yeah.
they don't usually interrupt you during your presentation. So you can go on, and then after the presentation, there will be a specific time for questions and questions only.
Oh, okay. I thought it would be after each person has spoken. Okay.
It depends. That's what I said in the beginning. It very much depends. Like I don't know if you could have told this from our answers, but we all had like extremely different experiences in terms of like questions and how it was conducted. So I think it depends. As I said, from my opinion, it's gonna be possibly 3 situations. They're gonna ask you after you finish with your specific part. They're gonna ask you after the entire team finishes. But that's unlikely. As David said, they're just gonna like stop you when they feel like they want to ask something and go ahead and ask it. But I think if they said specifically in the course description that they're only gonna do like the presentation and then have 20 minutes for questions, then I think I would assume that they would do the questions separately to the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, Daniel?
Yeah, just to go on from that question, if I remember correctly from my room, I think we were interrupted during our presentation, but I guess it might be different if it's done online. But I remember we were given kind of a bit more flexibility then with our time. I think some people went, maybe like a couple seconds over, we weren't cut off, like you said. But there was one team that went considerably over. And eventually, I think our supervisor did mention saying, you've gone considerably over time. Can we sort of wrap this up at some point? So, but I don't think you're cut off. You'll get warned, and maybe if you do go that much over, you get a couple points deducted. But I don't think anything too major.
Yeah. And Nita, do you also want to add something? Because I think I saw your hand at some point.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that what you basically just said. You can be stopped at any time. It depends on your supervisor. I was stopped twice during my part of the presentation, and I was also asked after I was done with my part of the presentation. So it really depends. Yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Okay, and we have another question. Please, you can go ahead and ask it. Your name is starting with a B, babe.
Yes, sorry. So as regarding to the questions again, because this is a bit confusing, like 20 minutes presentation and then 20 minutes to answer the questions. Is it do we have to, so if a question is asked by another team, not the supervisor, like do we have to select beforehand who is going to answer, or can anyone like take the floor and answer the question, or is the questions towards only one person, or is it just we should just answer it as it is, you know? This is my question.
Sarah or Daniel, you can go ahead.
I can go first. The thing is like they all mentioned, it will all depend. Like for example, I was with Mara. Do you remember Mara? We didn't have questions from any other team. Like we just had questions from the actual teacher. So I mean, like they all said, they're not going to be so specific and be like, okay, stop talking, you spoke more than 20 minutes. So it will really just depend. But concerning Carolina, your question, it is a good question. So I would advise you to actually ask Miss Musavi or Miss Park, because that is a good question. But like concerning if the other team member asks the question, maybe in the beginning the teacher will be like, okay, other team members, keep your questions till the end, or she'll be like, just raise your hand and I will then give you the floor. So just like listen in the beginning, and you can ask her these questions in the beginning so you're more aware how the process will go. I hope that was clear.
Daniel?
Yeah, just to answer the other question that was asked about like questions being directed at certain people. Again, it's not very helpful, I know, but it kind of depends. You know, some people might say, oh, my question is for this person, and point out your name in particular, or they might just say, they generally, I think most people will just say generally, but it's fairly obvious who the question is going to be directed at, because there'll be something they spoke about in theirs. However, if it's not covered, yeah, anyone can answer. And if you think you can give a good answer, you know, complete answer is a good way to get a bonus couple of points to raise your grade a little bit. But if you're not really sure, it's probably best to stay away unless your whole team is not sure. And then again, like before, just say something, so you don't sit there looking like a lemon.
Yeah, and another point which you just mentioned, which I think is very important, when they ask like a general question, they would base it on a specific part of the presentation. So it would make sense for the person whose part is targeted with the question to be the one to answer the question, because it is most likely that they have the most knowledge on that particular you know, like area. And I hope that, you know, you're not finding it confusing, because we're saying that it very much depends, but that was the reality. Like we all had extremely different experiences. As I said, like for me, firstly, the supervisor specifically asked each one of us a question based on what we said in our personal presentation. And then she asked 2 general questions, which anyone could have answered within the group. I don't know if this is how it's going to be. Again, I think it depends, but yeah, I'm hoping that we somehow made it a bit more clear, even though we're all just sharing the personal experience, because it wasn't like you know, like something strict as how it was with the MUN. Like you knew that something was going to happen this way. It was a bit more like, you know, everybody did it how they choose fit to do it as far as supervising goes. Bianca, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, but it's just an assumption. So last year we had a maximum of 20 minutes for the presentation and 15 minutes for the Q&A. And yes, as we said, some of us got interrupted multiple times during the presentation or was asked after the presentation. And this will more likely depend again, and it will more likely depend based on who your assessor is. I was just wanted to say that I think you guys should just try to be an extra, like a little bit more prepared, because you will not have the OLA phase, meaning that you will not have the part when everyone is in the OLA and the best teams are then being assessed to then see who's going to be the winning team. So I'm just assuming, though, they will maybe ask a few more extra questions, or maybe something a little more, you know, detailed or legal. Again, it's just an assumption, but, you know, be ready for everything, because at the end of the day, they will nominate again a winning team. So they will kind of want to see who is eligible for that, let's say, title, or they will, if they see that maybe a team is, you know, more likely, they are very prepared. They will just want to test a little extra their knowledge. Again, just assuming, but just be ready for, because everything may happen. So, but I don't want to scare you really. Sorry, but because I just want to make sure that is it at the end of the day it's a project that we're gonna be graded on and the final event and everything. So do not stress too much about it, but still you should take it with you should take it seriously, to some extent. Just so wanted to make sure of that, because I wouldn't want then to everyone be there and be like, oh, sorry, we're not that prepared because ILSA told us.
I think we very much.
I just wanted to make sure that it's still, like something that will be graded and matters for our GPA and everything.
No, and I think by the fact that we're all saying how different our experience is just shows how well prepared you have to be, because you really have no idea how exactly will go in your case. Do you still have a question, because you still have your hand up?
Me?
No, the girl who asked the question.
No, it's clear. Sorry, I forgot to put it.
No worries. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah. So, are there any other questions? Maybe Sarah, are there any on Instagram?
On Instagram, no, but if I'm not mistaken, on my screen I see someone called Heinz. Heinz has his or her hand raised.
Oh, I don't see it on mine, but please go ahead.
No, that was a long time ago, and my hand is down already, so I don't know what you're seeing.
Oh, sorry, maybe that's my laptop and screen then. Yeah, there's no more questions on Instagram, but I would like to give a tip, if that's okay, Mark.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, the thing is now it's more the presentation itself. Like I know this can apply to all presentations, but I don't know if everyone does know it, but I feel like it's important to have a good flow. So obviously you're going to be like in a team with other members. So if my advice is that once you finish your part, to say like, thank you, now I'll pass the floor on to my colleague X, who will now explain, and you say the topic. So the teacher would now be aware, okay, we finished this topic, now we're going to talk about that topic. So I think that's also a good way to show that you worked as a team and you're aware of what your other teammates worked on. And also it's important to have a good flow within your own presentation. So I don't know if you're talking more than one topic, to say like, first of all, then later on you say secondly, and also to show why your option is better than the other. So you'd be like, unlike a share transfer, a purchase of asset is more advantageous because, and say why. And just to weigh out and show like why at the end you came with this option. And lastly, my other tip is, if you're going to refer to some of the documents that have been disclosed to you, to actually take screenshots of the part. So like, for example, the parking lot thing that I was talking about before, we actually took a screenshot of where we found this. So this is like showing credibility, and it's in a way you're a scholar, but in a presentation. So they actually know you looked at the documents, and that's what you're talking about. So yeah, those are my tips, and I wish you all the good luck. And yeah, it probably seems so much more stressful than the projects in year one. That's how I felt. But like once you actually have it, you're like, oh, it's not that hard.
David, you can go ahead, and then I'm gonna take the question.
Yeah, thanks for the floor. I very much agree with what Sarah Jane just said right now. And I would also like to add that one important thing is that you should not contradict with your teammates. In the end of the day, you're all supposed to be partners of the same law firm. And it would be a very bad situation if one of you were to contradict each other. In fact, I saw last year a similar situation to this. There was a group of people saying something else and another person saying completely something else. And that looks completely unprofessional. So try to avoid that. And support your teammates, because teamwork, people. But yeah, I would also wish you great luck and success with everything.
Yeah, exactly. And to this end, I would also like to point out that I wanted to say, I think it's best for you to have the exact same set of facts before, like with everyone in your team, because I didn't do that last year with my team. And at some point we did, in a way, like contradict each other with like a fact. So I think it's nice for you to just have like a joint document, so you know you all have the same basis for your answers. Nita, do you want to say something as well?
Yeah, I just want to say that personally for me, it was the easiest presentation I've ever done. Even though the project seems so complicated, it's really not that hard to pass the presentation. And what I suggest is that make sure that you are a good team player, because that's so important, and try to be on the same page before you go in the room. Try, as you said, try to know the same facts and answer with the same flow to all the questions.
So just if you have any other questions, please let us know. Let us know now. Otherwise, I think I will just ask everyone who's like a speaker and didn't say anything yet, if he or she has any final tips, to go ahead and say them. So if there are no other questions, Daniel.
Yeah, I was just going to do my final tips, final advice. Basically, best I can say is just have fun. Really, you know, it's okay to be nervous. I mean, I still get nervous before every public speaking thing we do, and we've done so many of them now. But it's going to be okay. You know, the teachers or the supervisors that aren't there to trip you up, try and catch you out. They don't want you to fail. They want you to pass. And they're just trying to. The questions are effectively like they're giving you an opportunity to try and, you know, prove your understanding, like prove that you really get what's going on. So it's easy to say, but don't stress, and yeah, have fun. Thanks.
Exactly. And yeah, I just want to again agree with Sarah on what she said regarding this being the easiest project that we had so far. I realize it doesn't sound like that, especially after our presentation, because we you know, like we said so many like things, and we bombarded you with so many facts. But I do think like in the end, we didn't put in extreme effort, you know, for this, and it was very much something that, or at least I'm speaking in my experience, it was very last minute, and we still managed to do it just fine. So again, like I wouldn't stress too much about it. I will try to be as prepared as possible. If that's not, you know, if you cannot do that at the moment, or if you feel like you're a bit overwhelmed with everything, it is completely understandable. Just remember that this is the first time the event is taking place online. As far like, yeah, okay, because we were, yeah. So just don't, you know, if something happens or if something doesn't go accordingly, I don't think you should put like too much stress on yourself, because it's something new for everyone, especially for the coordinators of the project and for the supervisors. So yeah, just try to take it easy and don't stress too much about it, honestly. Is there anyone else who would like to add something?
Yes, I wanted to actually add on something that I don't remember if it was either, I think, Nita, Daniel, or David said about teamwork, because I was actually going through your course description and weekly assembly for this year, and I actually saw that in the last weekly assembly, in the reminders for the final event, it also says that team spirit matters. So make sure that you come there like you know, one team working for one client and having the best interests of your client always in mind, and, you know, helping each other and everything. But and on the advice part, yeah, I will reconfirm what you guys already said, and try to have the documents that we mentioned that are also in the course description. On the guidelines for the final event, it says that you need guys need those documents. Try to know what those documents are about, and try to know what you put in the presentation, and, you know, it's gonna be fine.
I guess if there's no other questions, or if no one wants to say anything else, I guess that was it. Thank you so very much for participating in the event. We really, really hope that you found it useful. We tried our best to be as prepared as possible and to give you all the information that unfortunately we didn't have access to last year. So yeah, we hope that you enjoyed it. Again, take it easy. We wish you the best of luck. We have our fingers crossed for you.